Autism spectrum disorder, or ASD for short, is thought to be a neurodevelopmental disorder, meaning that its root causes are believed to be a function of divergent brain development in the early years of life. Autism symptoms typically emerge in the first 3 years of life and persist throughout the individual's lifetime. The symptoms of ASD vary widely across individuals who are on the autism spectrum. When most people think of someone stereotypically with autism, they imagine a quote, profoundly disabled child with stereotyped movements, perhaps headbanging, rudimentary language, almost inaccessible. This is no longer a popular stereotype, but such children rarely do exist and they need constant care. It is not stigmatizing or social control to treat such a disorder as something to be treated. It is compassion. On the other end of the spectrum, we have people who are very high functioning and skilled. Many autistic individuals are highly skilled at programming, mathematics, etc. There are even companies, typically in tech, that specialize in hiring autistic people for jobs of this kind. But impaired social functioning remains a required symptom for ASD diagnosis and may indeed be a common thread in all people on the spectrum. Part of the reason why people on the autism spectrum have a deficit in social functions appears to be connected to perceptions of faces and emotions. The image on the slide here shows results of an eye tracking study where people were brought into the lab to look at photos of faces. On the left, we have the control group comprised of neurotypical participants who are clearly spending most of their time gazing at the center of faces, especially around the eyes and lips, which convey the most socio-emotional information. By contrast, those on the autism spectrum on the right side are gazing toward the periphery of people's faces where there is less socio-emotional information. These results are also reflected in studies of real-life interactions where it can be seen that people on the spectrum are less able to hold eye contact. This deficit in social functioning is apparent very early in life. In typical development, preferential attention to faces and the ability to recognize individual faces emerge in the first days of life, and the special way in which the brain responds to faces typically emerges by 3 months of age. Children with ASD, however, tend to show decreased attention to human faces by 6 to 12 months, and also different brain activity when looking at faces. Other symptoms include differential patterns of social relationships. For example, kids with ASD may not notice if other people try to play with them or not respond to their name or not share interests with others, for example, showing others an object that they like. Sometimes they do not pretend play, which is very common in kids, like pretending they're Superman or something, or singing, dancing, acting, especially with other people. And finally, we have repetitive actions like lining up toys in a specific order and getting upset when order is changed, repeating words or phrases over and over again, and a focus on repeating specific routines. Autism is highly heritable. In fact, the strongest predictor of whether someone will have ASD is whether it runs in their family. Some specific genetic or chromosomal conditions, such as Fragile X syndrome, also increase risk of ASD, as well as birth complications and being born to older parents. Boys are more than 4 times as likely as girls to have ASD, and we don't know why that is. It's also worth noting that there is absolutely zero evidence that vaccinations are associated with a greater risk for ASD. Importantly, there is no real treatment for ASD in the sense that you're trying to reduce or eliminate the presence of symptoms. Mainly, the treatments for ASD just focus on helping the person with day-to-day functioning. According to the CDC, current treatments for autism spectrum disorder seek to reduce symptoms that interfere with daily functioning and quality of life. ASD affects each person differently, meaning that the people who with ASD have unique strengths and challenges and different treatment needs. Therefore, treatment plans typically involve multiple professionals and are catered toward the individual. A notable behavioral treatment for people with ASD is now called Applied Behavior Analysis, or ABA. This encourages desired behaviors and discourages undesired behaviors to improve a variety of skills. One such skill is to initiate communication with others. Other treatments include occupational therapy, which may involve helping the person to live independently and to help improve responses to sensory input that may be restrictive or overwhelming. It is notable that organized support and treatment for ASD is reduced when people reach adulthood. This is unfortunate because adults with ASD still need a lot of support, particularly because unemployment is high among adults with autism. Aging with autism is another area in which little is known. The new lines of research and development in this field will hopefully address some of these gaps in treatment and support for adults with ASD.